The name of the series is You Are What You Believe. Of course, some people say you are what you eat. Philosophers say you are what you think. Other people say you are what I say you are. So what are we really? What is a human being? What is Adam? A mensch. What is a human being? Hasidus breaks it down to actually 10 features. There are 10 things that are unique to a human being. And these 10 things basically make up the patchwork of a human being. Patch quilt of a human being. Patchwork? That sounds terrible. The patch quilt, yeah. Anyway, here's what a human being is made of. There are 10 things that set the human being apart from both the animal that is below the human being and angels that are above the human being. Quality number 1, the first feature of a human being, is that although a human being is a composite being, as is everything, the uniqueness about the human is that in that composition, in the composition of the parts that make up the human being, there is a complete harmony, which is unlike the parts that make up everything else in the universe. For example, a machine works not out of harmony, but out of orderliness or timing. A machine works if this part goes this way and this part goes that way at the right times, so that they're working together, but it's not a matter of harmony, it's that they're synchronized. That's different from harmony. Harmonious blending of parts is a kind of a merging where every part surrenders to the other part and doesn't feel complete without it. In the human being, all the parts work in harmony in that each part, although it's unique and different, recognizes its dependency on the other parts and therefore is agreeable to working together, feels a need to work together. So it's not just a matter of timing, but it's a different quality, it's a different condition in which a human being exists. The reason the human being is this way is because we are created in God's image. And in God, there is harmony. Whereas in unholiness, there is dissonance, there is no harmony. And even when things work together, it's only because it suits their mutual needs, but they are not mutual towards each other. So the first quality of a human being is that a human being exists in harmony. And therefore, even physically, the parts of the body in the human being work as a harmonious whole. And if even the smallest limb were missing, the human being would be considered incomplete. That's why, for example, the Kohen who works in the temple can't be missing a little toe. He has to be whole. What is so terrible about missing an insignificant limb? A human being is a harmony. So if one piece is missing, the whole system is missing something and is therefore incomplete. The other way of looking at it is, in a harmonious system where there's an interdependency of all parts, the most important part has a dependency on the least important part. Or as the comedian says, the human body is a very democratic system. You stick your toe into the tub and the water is hot, the toe says no, nobody goes. The head does not go into the tub because the toe said no. So there's a very democratic system there. The toe can decide for the head, just as the head can decide for the toe. So there's an equality there in that every part in the system contributes something unique. And in that unique contribution, that part becomes the head. So in some way, every part of the body functions as a head sometimes, in something. Just very simply, when it comes to getting somewhere, getting somewhere, the feet are the head. Because the feet are the vital organ when it comes to getting somewhere. Other than that, the feet are the least vital, the lowest. Trait number 2 that makes a human being unique. Everything created in the world represents one or two qualities. Of the 10 attributes with which God creates the world, different creatures are the embodiment or the evolvement of a certain quality. So, for example, there are animals who are by nature very kind, at least to their own. That's the embodiment or the evolving of the attribute of kindness into a physical form. Other animals are by nature cruel, even to their own. That's the embodiment of the attribute of severity, of gevura. Even among the angels, there's the angel of kindness, there's the angel of compassion, there's the angel, every angel has its one quality that it embodies, and that's all it has. The human being, on the other hand, is composed of all the attributes that exist in creation. All of them exist in the human being. So a human being has both kindness and severity, compassion and conviction, flexible and stubborn. All the qualities that exist in the divine plan exist in the human being. But what's important to know, we all know that in the counting of the Sphira, we count the 7 weeks, and each week is made up of 7 days, because the week of kindness contains the kindness within kindness and the severity within kindness. But here we're not talking about the human being having all the attributes because they are all inclusive. The human being has kindness and all the subheadings of kindness, including severity within kindness. But in addition to that, the human being has severity. Severity as it exists independently. He has that too. And although they are essentially contradictory, kindness and severity are opposites, mutually exclusive, the human being is composed of all of them. The third trait in the human being is that the human being is composed of the highest and lowest, of the most godly and the least godly, whereas everything else has its place on the ladder of godliness or holiness. The human being is on every rung. He is the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. Because the soul of a human being is the highest of all creation, and the body of the human being is the lowest. In the description of creation, God says, "Let us make man." Why in the plural? Not the word us. Make. Na'aseh Adam. It's plural because the human being is a collection of all the attributes that exist in creation. So on the first day of creation, God didn't say plural because that was only one attribute. On the first day of creation, God expressed his kindness. On the second day of creation, God expressed his judgment. But when it came to creating the human being, this is plural. Here we're going to put all the attributes into action at the same time in the human being. So because the human being has all the traits, that's why it's plural. But after God says, let us make man, the Torah goes on to describe that God formed a body out of clay and then breathed into it a soul. No other creature was created this way. When God wanted animals, God said, let the earth give forth animals. And animals came into existence, living beings, living bodies. There was never a moment when the lion's body was simply a lump of clay and then it came to life. It was always alive. Maybe this is why animals have more energy, more life than a human being. Particularly wild animals, not domestic animals. Wild animals have far more energy and life than a human being because they were created alive. Whereas the human being, the only creature in the world that was created lifeless. So the body of the human being is less alive than the body of an animal. So it's the lowest of the low. And everything in between, all of it exists within the human being. So the human being is a harmony of parts. The harmony includes all the traits that exist in the universe. And all of these traits exist on the highest levels and on the lowest levels. So that, for example, a human being has kindness. He can have the most noble kindness, greater than the kindness of the angel of kindness. The Medrash says that when Avraham performed his kindness to travelers, his hospitality, the angel of kindness came to God and said, am I retired? Am I done? Because, Avraham outdoes me. So the kindness of a human being can be the highest, higher than the angel of kindness. And then again, of course, a human being's kindness can be the lowest of the low. Unholy love, misguided kindness, the worst of the worst. As the wise saying goes, if you are kind to evil people, you will eventually be evil to kind people. And in that sense also, we are worse or lower than the animal, because an animal can't be evil. An animal's an animal. He does what he was created to do. He can't be evil.
What about what's the animal that's sacrificed that's considered a thief? The chicken or the pigeon? Because it flies and takes what it wants. Judge differently, which takes it a thief.
There are animals that represent certain qualities that are distasteful to the human being. But we don't hold the animal responsible or guilty or punishable for it. We just don't want to include it in our lives because of what it represents. We don't want that. So, for example, the Rebbe said not to decorate a child's bedroom with non-kosher animals. Not that we have anything against the animal. The animal is a perfectly good animal in the animal world, but it doesn't belong in a child's bedroom. The fourth thing that separates a human being from all other creatures, the highest and the lowest, that is freedom of choice. The fact that a human being can choose which way he wants to use his talents and what he wants to do with his abilities, that freedom is unique in the world. Angels don't have freedom of choice. Animals don't have freedom of choice, which means everything created in the world is governed by the blueprint with which it was created. If it was created to be an animal, then it has no choice but to be an animal. If it was created to be an angel, it has no choice but to be an angel. And so it has only one script, and it can't stray from that script. can't ad lib. Whereas a human being, although we were created to be humans, there is a blueprint. It's not like God said, you can be whatever you want to be. God created us with a blueprint. We are meant to be humans. And yet we have the freedom of choice, that we can stray from that blueprint. And a human being can be an animal by choice. And a human being can be an angel by choice. Both choices are not so good, because we're meant to be humans, and that's the only correct choice. The choice to be an angel is not a good choice. It may be noble, but it's incorrect. And certainly the choice to be an animal is not the correct choice. So a human being has freedom of choice in that he is able to ignore the blueprint with which he was created and choose for himself his own plan. Again, the reason for all of these, what makes all of this so, is that we are created in God's image. And just as God is harmonious, just as God has all the traits, just as God is the highest and the lowest, just as God has freedom of choice, we have as well. Number 5. There's a unique behavior in human beings that doesn't exist anywhere else, and that is that human beings love to dictate. We love to control others. It satisfies something very deep in our soul. When you have control over other people, it makes your day. How depressed, how suicidal a person becomes if they feel that no one ever listens to me. I can't get anything I want. You become depressed. Because a human being, by our very essential nature, we love to dictate, to control the behavior of others. Even children get such a kick out of controlling an animal. When the pet does what the child wants it to do, there's such a pleasure from that. That's where the children, when they're cruel, overdo it, abuse that power they have over the animal. We love to control others. Sometimes in a positive way, too. We love to govern. Animals don't have this. Animals have a certain violence about them with which they control others. But that's not governing others. That's intimidation of others. So it's not that the animal wants certain behavior. No, the animal wants his security or his food. And to make sure that he gets what he needs, he will intimidate. But other than his own needs, he doesn't care how you behave. Whereas a human being, even if I'm getting nothing out of it, I want to dictate how you should behave. I want to tell you what you should wear, how you should make your hair. What am I going to get from it? Nothing. I just thought I'd tell you. Because I like to mind other people's business. That's human nature. We like to impose our will. Animals don't have that. Animals impose their needs, not their will. So government, which by the way is a very positive, necessary human talent, I mean that's what civilization is all about, and we're supposed to pray for the welfare of the government, no matter how bad it is, because without some kind of government it would be worse. So without government we'd be in big trouble, and the ability to govern is a necessary talent that human beings need. And at times, this desire to govern comes not from severity, like in the animal, when an animal dictates another animal's behavior. Very often, the desire to govern actually comes out of kindness. Like a teacher in a class, parents with their children, and a benevolent dictator. He governs not out of severity or harshness or cruelty. On the contrary, out of concern and kindness and devotion and care. But the desire is to have people behave the way I think they should behave. Where does this come from in the human psyche? It can only be one place. We're created in God's image. God is a king. God has a definite opinion about how others should behave. And he gets great pleasure when people behave the way he thinks we should. So, being created in God's image, we inherit that quality. We also have this desire to impose our will. Number 6. Here we're getting a little more psychological. Of all the creatures in the world, only the human being is self-aware. Remember in the story, Yaakov is wrestling with the angel. And he says to the angel, "What is your name?" And the angel says, "Why are you asking my name?" Why didn't he just tell him his name? Is it a secret? The angel doesn't know his name. An angel is not self-aware. Every angel has a name. But the angel doesn't necessarily know his name. He doesn't know himself. He knows his mission. That's all he knows. That's what makes him an angel. If he knew his mission and he was self-aware, he wouldn't be such an angel. Because once in a while he would say, I'm not in the mood right now to do my mission. But because he is not self-aware, he is always an angel. He'll always go on his mission. Because he has no self-agenda. He has no self-awareness. And so he is an angel. A human being is self-aware. Animals are also not self-aware. Animals are conscious of their needs. They are not conscious of themselves. I don't know if we should call this ego awareness, possibly. Animals don't have ego awareness. They have need or instinct awareness. They don't have self-awareness. So if you hurt an animal, he is hurt and frightened, but he's not embarrassed. He's not insulted because he has no ego. He has a survival instinct, not an ego instinct. Whereas a human being is self-aware. But what does self-aware mean? It's like that expression, "You talking to me?" What is that reaction? What do we mean when we say me? There's so many parts to me. So when you talk to me, what are you talking to? You're talking to my mind, you're talking to my heart, you're talking to my body, you're talking to my clothes. What are you talking to? No, you're talking to me. That's the self that we are aware of. And that's why in everything that pertains to me, I cannot be flexible. Because it's the totality of me. In that, I can't be flexible. I can be flexible in a detail, but you're talking about me? You're talking to me? Well, I can't compromise on me. So that's the self-awareness. Not just conscious of self, meaning I'm conscious of my arm, I'm conscious of my size, of my looks. I'm conscious of me. There's a me behind all of this. And that an animal doesn't have, and an angel doesn't have. Again, where does this come from? Because we're created in God's image. And God is an essential me, way above and beyond all the details. So we can say God is infinite, God is a creator, God is a protector, God is a father, God is... Yeah, but beyond all of that, There's God. And that's what we say in the Adon Olam. We're saying God is God before He's a creator, before He's infinite, before He's omnipotent, before any of that stuff. There's Him. So when you talk to God, God also has this reaction. Talking to me? Talk to me. Don't talk to my attributes. Talk to me. Because there is a me. Whereas angels don't have a me. If you talk to the angel of kindness, you're talking to kindness. You're not talking to him. If you talk to an animal, you're talking to his needs. You're not talking to him. There is no him. Number 7. A human being is articulate. A human being can speak. In fact, according to some Jewish philosophy, Torah philosophy, the essence of a human being, the truly unique thing about a human being is that he speaks, not that he's intelligent. Because sometimes what we say makes no sense at all. So there's no intelligence in it, and yet we have the ability to speak, even when we have nothing to say, which proves that our ability to speak is more essential to us than our intelligence. We actually have this immense pleasure that comes from speaking. And that's why it's literally true that if I talk here for an hour and everything I say is wrong, and you disagree with everything I say, I don't care. I enjoy talking. Sure, I enjoy being right also, but that comes second. The first thing is I communicated and you listened. That's the best thing. That is the greatest pleasure. You agree with me, you don't agree with me, but I spoke and you listened, that's it. That is a greater pleasure than knowing what I'm talking about. And that's why in Torah we are sometimes described, when we talk about the 4 kingdoms, there's the mineral kingdom, the inanimate, then there's the vegetable, then there's the animal, then there's the speaker. That's what it's called. That's what we're called. We are the species known as speakers. Medaber, we speak. Animals live, vegetables grow, we speak. Because the gift of articulation actually is rooted in our soul more primal than our intelligence. The trick is to bring a little intelligence to your speech, not the other way around. It's not like, well, you know a lot of stuff, can you say it? No. I can talk. Now give me something to say. Give me something intelligent to say, because I'm going to talk. Speech is essential. It'd be nice if I had something intelligent to say. What is this unique quality of articulation? A parrot can speak. Other animals may learn to speak. But when an animal speaks, it is not expressing itself. It's mimicking. It's playing back what it hears. It's not coming from itself. In other words, in the human being, language is the soul's ability to make itself known. It's not another talent. It's not like the ability to build a building. That is very far from the soul. Although there is some pleasure and satisfaction that comes even from the most physical activity. But speech in the human being is the soul's personal ability to make itself known. So when a person is talking about things that they heard, they're talking like a parrot. So articulation doesn't mean the ability to make sounds. Articulation means the ability to make your inner self available on the surface. Bring the inner to the outer. bring what's inside to the surface. Only a human being has this ability. There's a theory or there's a speculation about if a human being somehow was on a desolate island all by himself from the first moments of birth, would he speak? Would he have language? And there's a theory that says yes, he would. He would have a complete language, and it would be Hebrew. Because Hebrew is the language with which the world was created. So the soul doesn't learn to speak. The soul has the ability to speak. Of course, it has to speak your language, otherwise you won't understand. So language is a completely independent thing from speech. A human being can speak. Now he needs a language. If he wasn't given a language, he would either make up his own, or he would go back to the primal language and he would speak Hebrew. But the ability to speak doesn't come with the language. The ability to speak comes in the soul. The language is, I guess according to most theories, simply a matter of consensus. Let's call that a table. These 7 things make up a set because they are all the result of the fact that we were created in God's image. There are 3 more qualities to a human being. But these 3 qualities are somewhat secondary because they are the result of the fact that we are intelligent. All of these things, the first 7, are greater than our intelligence. So when we say a human being is unique because he's intelligent, that's really not quite correct. Because intelligence is not an essential quality. In other words, there's no such thing called intelligence. I don't know how to say this. Intelligence is a verb. It's not a noun. So you can't say a human being is an intelligence. A human being is intelligent means he functions intelligently. So, what is a human being? You say, well, he's intelligent. Fine, but what is intelligent? You see? You can't say, that's it, that's what he is. He's intelligent. No, he is intelligent. Well, what is he? He is these first 7 things. Then we come to the more practical or external dimensions of the human being. And that is, number 8, this is the intelligence of the human being. Intelligence means objectivity. That a human being can observe, come to a conclusion, and turn that into reality. Animals may have intelligence. Angels certainly have intelligence. And in some ways a greater intelligence than human beings. But it's not the same kind of intelligence. An angel's intelligence changes nothing. The angel does not change according to his intelligence. Angels don't grow. So having intelligence does not increase or improve the life of an angel. Whereas in the human being, all the information I get has an effect on me and it changes me. Because being intelligent doesn't mean knowing. An intelligent being, as the human is, means that my feelings are governed or influenced or controlled by my intelligence. When I love intelligently. That's called intelligence. So intelligence doesn't mean something going on in my mind. That's not an intelligent being. An intelligent being means that you can see from everything I do that I am intelligent. There's intelligence behind everything. A person walks with intelligence. You can actually see a person walking without intelligence, and it don't look pretty. You know what I'm talking about? Some people walk and there's no intelligence behind the walk. And you say, that's a goon. That's not an intelligent person. Now, he may be brilliant, but intelligence doesn't mean what goes on in your head. Intelligence means the quality that permeates your existence. A human being is intelligent because his intelligence permeates his existence. But the ability to learn ends here. Okay, now I learned. And I get up, slam the book like an idiot, and walk like a jerk. But my information is all here. That's not a definition of intelligence. Not only what you do, but that everything you do. That's the definition. Any activity, any behavior, any emotion, anything a human being touches should have the imprint of intelligence. And then he's an intelligent being. So a person walks with intelligence, sits with intelligence, loves, hates, all with intelligence, which makes him very dangerous. Because if you hate with intelligence, this is scary. So intelligence means that no activity is permitted in the human totem pole unless the intelligence approves. So an intelligent being is not a being that has intelligence. An intelligent being means the total being is intelligent. Everything about him is intelligent. Well, let's look at it on the negative side. A person does something, right? You're pouring from one bottle into another, and it's not going very well. It's spilling all over the place, and you feel like an idiot. Now, wait a minute. How much intelligence does it take to pour from one bottle to another? Why is this about your intelligence? But yet, if we're not coordinated in how we do this very simple mechanical physical act, we feel stupid. Now, what has stupid got to do with it? You're not coordinated, but you're very intelligent. You see, intelligence to the human being means everything I do is intelligent. So anything I do incorrectly or not successfully is a failure of my intelligence. And that's as it should be. One of the earliest things that I noticed about the Rebbe, I had no idea what a Rebbe was. I knew he was a great, important man, but they made him this big chair, a cushioned chair for him to sit in, with arms, and he would sit and daven, and then you get up for the Amida, right? And you need to take 3 steps back, and the chair's in the way. Now, the average human being would push the chair out of the way. But that's not necessarily an intelligent thing to do. The Rebbe would reach, he was standing this way, and this is the back of the chair. The Rebbe would reach to the back of the chair, tilt it back onto one leg, and spin it. It was so coordinated, it was so effortless, it was so smooth, because it was intelligent. You could see intelligence in the way he moved a chair. He didn't just get up and kick it, which would work, but it's not very intelligent. At a Farbrengen on Yutes Kislev, every Farbrengen on Yutes Kislev, the Rebbe would ask people to sign up to study one of the 60 volumes of the Talmud, of the Gemara, so that altogether the community would be studying the entire Talmud. And they would hand out little cards. You fill in the volume, the tractate that you're going to study, put it into an envelope, and hand it up to the Rebbe. At a Farbrengen, there are about 800 people. People fill out these envelopes, and they're all passing it up. And then they got to get all these envelopes into a manila envelope, to a large envelope. So the secretaries are there, and they're kind of scrambling to get it all. Almost every Farbrengen, it's taking them too long. So the Rebbe reaches over, scoops up a bunch of... Why does it work better when he does it? How does he get 30 envelopes in one scoop? there's an intelligence to everything. That's an intelligent human being. When they ever walk down the street, just walking down the street, dressed like everybody else, people would stare at him. What is it about the way he walked? There was something very intelligent about it. Intelligent doesn't mean brilliant. It's not like he had a walk that nobody else had. He found a new way to walk. So intelligent doesn't mean brilliant. It means even when he walked, you could tell that this is an intelligent person. I think they call it today mindfulness. Right? Is that the term? A human being has to be mindful, which means there has to be a presence of mind in everything you say and in everything you do. Because you're a human being. When a human being walks, it should be intelligent. When a human being sits, it should be intelligent. So when I get a group of teenagers into a classroom, the first thing I say is, okay, who is sitting intelligently and who's sitting like a fool? You know what happens? They all sit up, which is how they should have been sitting in the first place. Now, I don't say how to sit. I say, who's sitting like a fool? They sit up straight. Why? You see, they know. They know that you don't sit on your spine. That's not intelligent. Why? I don't know, but that's the way it is. And as soon as you say, are you sitting like a fool? They know exactly what to change. They sit up. So this is the eighth quality in a human being, that a human being is permeated by intelligence, not only possesses intelligence. The ninth quality is in Hebrew called pnimi. Not sure what a good translation would be. There are people who live on the surface. That's called chitzon. And then there are people who live internally. That's called pnimi. Inward. But what it means for our purposes here is that a person responds from within to external stimuli. When a person hears something, he internalizes. Only a human being does that. A person hears a lesson, a shiur, and walks away thinking, so what should I do? So what does that mean to me? We weren't talking about you. We're talking about an idea. And yet you walk away saying, so what should I do? What was he trying to tell me? He wasn't telling you anything. But that's how you perceive it. So a person is affected internally, personally, by things that come from the outside. So now we're not talking about the effect of your intelligence. If you know something to be right, then you ought to do that. That's part of being intelligent. But here we're talking about being affected by external things, not by your own knowledge. Even the fact that a human being is affected by style, by what's popular, by his environment. A human being is affected by changes in weather, like the light deprivation, what is that called? The Minnesota thing. They should call it the Minnesota syndrome. That when we're deprived of light because it's winter, we're affected. And not only in that we have to put on more winter clothes and it becomes a little more of a hassle to get the car started, we're affected internally. We are personally affected. The human being is different if he lives in a cold environment versus a hot environment. If he lives on a mountain or he lives in a valley. If he lives near the ocean or far from the ocean. If he lives in a big city or in a small town. All of these things affect a person internally. In other words, we are very influenced by our surroundings. Animals are not like that. Of course, animals are affected by heat and cold. But again, that's their survival need, not their personal, not their selves. The animal is no less an animal, no more an animal, whether he's hungry, whether he's starving, whether he's thirsty, hot, cold. But a human being is different depending on his environment. By the same token, we have an effect on our environment. A human being is affected by the friends that they have, and the human being affects the friends that they have. So we are both influenced and we are influential. That's a human being. Why is that? Because of our intelligence. Our intelligence makes us conscious and aware of our surroundings. And as a result, we are affected by it. So an intelligent human being must be affected and must have an effect. If a person lives and is completely unaffected by his environment, by his surroundings, he's not very intelligent. Like this sign I saw in this office, if you can be calm under the circumstances, maybe you don't understand the circumstances. Maybe you're not smart enough to worry or to get depressed. If you know what's going on, it must affect you. So an intelligent being must be different when he's in one environment than the way he would be in a different environment, because your awareness makes you adjust. Even if the adjustment is shutting down. But you knew to shut down, because you knew that if you didn't shut down, you would be totally overwhelmed and you would die. Why will some people become violent in the face of danger and others will become passive? And that's why you can't justify a person's behavior on the grounds that his environment influenced him. Of course your environment influences you, and then you have to respond. But your response is not instinctive. So a guy gets drunk and all the ugliness comes out. He's violent, he's thoughtless, he's crude. That doesn't come from the liquor. Because sitting right next to him is another guy who's just as drunk. And he's sweet, and he's pleasant, and he's... The final thing, the 10th attribute of a human being, or dimension of the human being, is that a human being changes. Angels don't change. They're the same all the time. There's no growth. A human being is constantly changing. You're not the same today as you were yesterday. You either got better or you got worse. And this also is because we are intelligent. Intelligence implies change. You know more today than you knew yesterday. You've heard more today than you heard yesterday. You've seen more today than you've seen, and therefore, change is appropriate. In light of the new information, in light of the new experience, you have to change. You have to be different now than you were yesterday, either for better or for worse. But you can't be the same. Now, when you take these 10 qualities, and we always look for something that unifies, right? There's something about us. We're uncomfortable with numbers. There are 10 things about you. There can't be 10 things. There's only one thing. There's only one me. How can there be 10 things? And that's why Einstein devoted his life to this pursuit of one universal law. You can't have many laws. It's disturbing to the mind. It's clumsy. It's not convincing. But when you have one law that governs everything, then you know that's right. That sounds true. Well, for this, the reason I didn't come to school yesterday is because the reason I didn't come the day before was another reason. The day before that, I had a third reason. You had 3 different reasons? I don't believe any of them. But if you tell me you didn't come for 3 days because you couldn't come for one reason, it sounds a little more believable. But every day a different excuse, there's something wrong with that. And that's why Greek mythology is so silly. This happens because this god does it. That happens because that god does it. So when does this god decide and that? Well, they fight. It's ridiculous. Forget about it. None of it is true. What is the one thing that explains all 10? What is the one underlying truth that produces these 10 different features in the human being? The one quality that does it all, the human being is a purposeful creature. That's not a feature in the human being. That's everything. A human being is a purposeful creature. This means to say, not only that we were created with a purpose, because everything was created with a purpose, but where does that purpose reside? Who feels, who is driven by a purpose? The Creator. God created the table with a purpose. So God suffers the purpose. He's unsatisfied, dissatisfied when the purpose is not fulfilled. He is satisfied when the purpose is fulfilled. But the table couldn't care less. You want to use me for a purpose? Fine. You don't want to? That's okay. The same with an animal. You want to make good use of me? Fine. You don't? That's okay. I don't care. Because although the animal exists for a purpose, the animal does not embody that purpose. The purpose resides in the Creator, not in the creation. So when the Gemara says God didn't create a single thing in the universe without a purpose, that's true, and the universe couldn't care less. It tells us something about the universe, that everything in the universe has a purpose, gives us a whole different respect for the universe. It has a purpose. It needs to be. But whose need is it? Not the universe. The universe has no needs. But the Creator of the universe has a need for everything in His creation. The human being is not like that. The human being is not only created for a purpose, the human being suffers his own purpose. If I don't feel purposeful, I suffer. If I can't figure out the purpose of my life, I have a problem. I can't live like that. That's why it says in Kabbalah that when a human soul is punished by being incarnated into an animal or into a plant, that is a terrible punishment for the soul. Why? Because it has no purpose there. It's imprisoned. It doesn't do anything there. And not having a purpose, that is the most painful thing to a human soul, because the human soul is essentially purposeful. He's driven by purpose. Now, the famous psychologist Viktor Frankl, he says that what lies at the core of a human psyche, what makes a human being tick, is the need for purpose, meaning. Problem with that philosophy is that he doesn't tell you what the meaning is. So it's up to you to find your own meaning. And people get involved in some very meaningless things and call it the meaning of their lives. So it kind of like a placebo, it feels good for a while, but then you realize, no, I thought this was a meaning in my life, but it has no meaning. Or it's not meaningful enough. So if we're going to say that a human being is driven by, let's say, libido, you don't need to explain that. A person has sexual drives, and that's what motivates everything. If you say a person is driven by ego needs, it needs no explanation. You have an ego, it drives you. But when you say a person is driven by purpose, You got to finish the story. What do you mean driven by purpose? What purpose? If there is no purpose, how did you get a need for one? Or if there is no home, how can you be homesick? How can you need something that doesn't exist? That's not possible. So if a human being is driven by a need to fulfill a purpose, then there must already exist a purpose. Otherwise, it's pathological behavior. There is no purpose. Stop it. What's my purpose in life? There is no purpose. Where'd you get this notion from? Now, if there really was no purpose, and a person would come to a psychiatrist and say, I can't sleep at night because I don't know what my purpose is. And the psychiatrist says, I got good news for you. There is no purpose. He becomes not better, he becomes worse. There's no purpose? I'm going to kill myself now. Otherwise, I would have waited till next week. In other words, there exists a purpose, and the feeling that I'm not in touch with that makes me crazy. The human being is created in God's image, not only in that we have some of God's talents, or we have some of God's qualities. Being created in God's image means, just as God creates for a purpose, we exist with a purpose. Not only for a purpose, with a purpose. It's embedded in us. And when we sense that our life has no purpose, it destroys us. We can't accept that. And some people, if a day goes by and that day had no purpose, they're destroyed by it. They can't tolerate that. With some people, even an hour. I just wasted an hour. It kills me. Well, not me. I'm not like that. But some people are like, you just wasted my time. So what? What's so precious about your time? It's not the time. It's the meaninglessness. I can't tolerate that. An hour went by without meaning. That violates something very essential in the human being. If we are human beings. When we are human beings, we are very uncomfortable with the thought of a wasted day or a wasted time, a wasted effort, because we need purpose. Sometimes part of your purpose is to be passive. Vacation time, sleep time. It's passive, but it's purposeful. It has its purpose, and it is your purpose. You, by design, by plan, purposefully take time off from one activity to prepare yourself for another activity. Then there's a second thought. There are times when you want to do something meaningful, but you're frustrated. It doesn't happen. You get stuck. Flight is canceled. Now you can say, well, I didn't get to fulfill my purpose, my intended purpose. But there's a bigger purpose beyond what I know that justifies what is happening, because on some level this too is purposeful. But it's not my purpose. It's the purpose that carries me, not the purpose that I carry. Which is fine. Sometimes even better than the purpose I carry. But this is the essence of the human being, that we have this sense of mission. We know that we are on a mission. We know that we exist for a mission. And the fulfillment of that mission drives us into all of these 10 things. Because it is our mission to transform creation, that's why we have every part of creation within us. Because if we're going to affect creation, we have to be able to touch it. If we don't share in any part or any dimension of creation, then that part of creation we cannot affect, because we can't touch it. So To sum it all up, a human being has 10 qualities, 10 traits, 10 characteristics, 10 different unique natures, but it all comes from one thing. It comes from the fact that a human being bears his own purpose, carries his own mission. And being a purposeful creature, these 10 conditions evolve. They are all necessary in the fulfillment of that purpose.